Hey there. So one of the most common questions that I get from up-and-coming beginner colorists is, there's sometimes my colors just don't seem to fit. Or even if you don't want to be a colorist, you're just trying to color your own art. And you're like, why don't my colors seem to fit together? They seem to clash. Kind of like these pink pajamas in this scene here. So in this video, I want to show you guys how to rein in some of those colors that seem to be out of place and explain why it's happening, or at least try to. So check it out. Hey there, my name is K. Michael Russell. I am a comic book colorist and digital artist, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So in the video today, I'm going to be trying to show you guys why is color so hard? It's a question that I get often, and I'm trying to help explain why coloring can be more complex than most people realize. And I want to start with this example. This is from, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. We were doing a hack slash nail biter crossover. And I had done hack slash before, but it was this was after this character had died. Spoiler alert. This is Vlad, and so he wasn't in the issue. He wasn't in the series that I colored. And so when the second series came around, I was like, "Oh, cool! I get to color Vlad." He was. This was like a prequel kind of story. And I had a hard time getting his skin color right. I would color a page and send it over, and Tim, the creator of the character, he would say, he's not quite that green, or he's not that gray, he's a little bit more yellow, or and I had a tough time with it. So and then I would get it right on one page. I'm like, okay, great. I've figured out what color Vlad is. Then I would go to the second page, and I would color him again, and I would send it over, and then, well, it's not quite that. It's not that gray. It needs to be a little bit more green. And I'm just like, why is this so hard? It's because at the time, this was a couple of years ago, I didn't really understand that color is relative. And I've talked about this on the channel a lot, but I don't think I've actually done a full video on it. The color green is only green in some scenarios. There's scenarios where green can look gray and where green can look bluer. And so I wanted to give you guys a couple examples of this. I want to start with this one. And instead of jumping around a bunch of different pages, I'm just going to do it all here. So this is about as close as you can get to what I think is Vlad's local color, which is this very, very grayish yellow-green color. Okay, it's very, very desaturated. If I color pick it, you guys can see it's almost gray. And with things that don't have much color in them, okay, think colors that are really desaturated, grays, even like whites and eyes and teeth and things like that. The reason they can be hard to work with sometimes is because they tend to absorb whatever color the light is around them a lot, more so than other colors, because they're not bringing their own color to the situation. It's like this blue hoodie that he's wearing. Let's say that if I want to do a nighttime scene, and I switch it to this, and this is just a color mode layer on top filled with blue. It's about 50%. Well, you can see it's pretty dramatically changed his skin color. His skin color is basically now blue. If I color pick that, you can see it's blue. If I turn it off again, just to remember where it is, it was this yellow-gray color. When I turn this blue on, it's pretty much blue. It's a blue color. But the hoodie didn't change that much because it's already blue. Okay, so it shifted just a little bit toward that color that I chose. But you can see that it's really not moving that much on the color wheel. Now let's say Vlad is standing on Mars, okay, and everything's red. Okay, well, the blue has shifted toward purple because you mix blue with red and you get purple, and his skin is pretty much red. Okay, a reddish orange here. So his skin is taking on the color of the environment that it's in because it's such a gray color. Same thing with the whites of his eyes. I'm not going to color pick it and show you guys all the examples, but the whites of eyes, which are called sclera, if you didn't know that, is actually, they should never really be pure white. Whatever the overall color of your scene is, put a little bit of that in the eyes. And it doesn't have to be much. Like if I do show you one example, it's really close to white, but it's got a little bit of blue in it, if I was doing a really moody scene and maybe something dramatic is about to happen and You know, the blue hoodie has shifted a little bit toward teal because we've added green to the blue. That makes sense. And his skin is green. Okay, so that's why I was having such a hard time with Vlad, his skin color. And I'll show you guys kind of an extreme example of this. And I can't remember if I've showed this before on the channel. It may have been a live stream, but it was such a great example. I'm going to show it again anyway. So this is a panel from Paper Girls, which is colored by Matt Wilson. I posted this on Twitter a couple of months back. If I were to ask you what color her hair was, this character right here, you would probably say red, okay? In this context, like what color is her hair? It's supposed to be red, like a reddish orange. It looks that way, okay? Now, if I do this and ask you what color is her hair, it's purple now, right? Like it's completely different color, okay? Now, let me show you something cool. If I put both of these side by side and color pick both of them, watch the color wheel over here. Pick there, it's the same color. There's some JPEG artifacts in this, so it's shifting a little bit, but it's the same color, okay? It's completely different in both scenarios. It looks like an entirely different color from what it is here to what it is here. And the reason for that is the color relativity I was talking about. You know, this only looks red because everything around it is very cool, and it's actually like this purple color, which is a combination of blue and red, right? So if we flip-flop that around and make the environment green, and without changing that color at all, it no longer really fits this scenario. I can't use that same color again because the environment's different. And so the environment color is really what's going to dictate the overall look of my scene. And you're like, okay, I get this, I understand it. Now, how on earth do I apply this to a comic? Well, I'm going to show you. This is a page from Resurrection number 8, which we just turned in. It's coming out in a couple of weeks, and I'm probably not supposed to show it, so I've blocked out this because I don't know if you're supposed to know who this guy is that she's talking to on the phone. But they're in this grungy, grimy hotel room, and so I found like the pukiest green color that I could find, and that's what the overall sort of gamma, I guess you could say, for this scene. The overall color of the lighting in this scene, in this room, is this pukey lime green color. I'm going to turn off all of the rendering here for a second. And let's turn these on. So this is what's actually underneath all of my rendering. Okay, these are basically just local colors. Okay, this is the color of her skin, and under a white light, that's what it would be like. This is the color of the pajamas she's wearing. You know, it's this pink, fuchsia, reddish color. You know, Vlad is that same, you know, really desaturated yellow-green. Okay, I haven't changed that in the last 3 years. Always make sure that's the same color. And all I'm doing is I'm putting color mode layers on top to sort of tie it all together. Okay, so in this case, I put this sort of, let me show you guys. I'm going to turn the opacity on this layer all the way up for a second so you guys can see. But that's the color. I've just got the opacity turned way down to 45%. And then that becomes my base color, basically. Okay, so everything else that I do on top of this, I'm always making sure that I'm working from this standpoint. Okay, her skin is not really skinish color anymore. It's got a lot of yellow in it. You know, the pink that we saw before, if you look on the color wheel, here's where it is before, just kind of a little bit of purplish red. But once I drop that green over it, you know, it's moved it all the way around to it's almost orange. And so it's moving toward green on the color wheel. This is one reason why I'm going to plug Magic Picker here for a second. Magic Picker is the color picker thing that I'm using here. I've used it for years. You guys that always ask where I got it from, Google Magic Picker. There's also a link in the description to take you straight to the store. But I like it because I can see the relationships of these colors together, you know. And so that pinkish purple is trying to make it around the color wheel toward green because the green is the color of the light. So how do you get there? You have to go through orange, you know? So it's starting to get through orange, you know? And the greater that effect is, the more it's going to go around the color wheel, you know? So you'll also see that it's desaturated quite a bit too. So if I turn it off and pick it again, so here's our starting point. If I turn it back and color pick, there's our starting point, that pinkish red again. So if I turn that on, color pick again, you can see that it's a little bit darker and it's getting a little bit less saturated. Now if I really jack up this effect, like 75% or 77, I color pick it again, you can see how far we've traveled around the color wheel. You know, we're still trying to get to green. We've added a lot of green, so what does it have to do? It's got to go through yellow. Okay, so it's literally traveling around the color wheel, the shortest possible distance, by the way. It's not going to go through purple and blue to get to green. It's going to try to go toward green the shortest possible way, which is going to be through this way. But that's what I do on these pages is I will, like I said, right now the effect is really strong, so I'm going to turn this back down where it was. I think it's right there. So then I'm using that as a base, and then everything else that I'm doing is just layered on top of that. Okay, and there's a bunch of different rendering going on here. I'll give you another example. Now this one is really, really subtle, very subtle. This is the first page from that issue, same issue, and we've got this scene where it's daytime, it's lunch, they're ordering food from Taco Hell. Okay, even in this page where the light is pretty much white, I put a very, very low opacity color layer in this blue color. I'm going to turn this all the way up so you guys can see. So I basically said, this is the color of my sky. I'm going to drop, I think what was it, 8% or something, 8 or 10% of that all over my base colors. Let me hide all this again. Here's my base color. So I put a little bit of that blue over those colors just to kind of rein in some of those colors that might be a little too saturated. Like, and this is very, very subtle, and I probably didn't even need to do it, but if you look at her color of her skin here versus with that blue, and looking at the color wheel here, it's going to shift just a little bitty bit toward that orange, you know. And the orange in the sign, you know, if I turn this back on, and you can watch it travel from that slight orange into just a little bit less desaturated orange. So to really see this effect well, you have to turn it up a little bit stronger. But I didn't want this. This looks overcast, you know. So I added that blue to sort of sell the fact we got this bright blue sky and it's affecting everything. Obviously, even if it's not indirect light, you know, when you get into the truck here, especially, you can see all the little bit of bounce light inside in the shadows. That's pretty much the sky color that I'm throwing around in there. So that's another thing you can do to help tie it together is you can add a little bit of indirect light based on whatever the overall color of your environment is. And on a sunny day, that typically tends to be a bluish color. I mean, that's why the rule of thumb about warm light and cool shadows, I mean, that really applies because of the color of our sky, you know. If a yellow sun is hitting us, or mostly yellow, a whitish yellow, then in the rest of the sky is blue, it's one big light. You know, the sky is also a light source. So anywhere that you see shadows, they tend to be cooler, you know, not because of the color of the sun, but because of the color of the sky. So if we were on Mars, the warm highlights, cool shadows doesn't apply anymore because they're going to be warm too, because the sky is red there, if you didn't know. So I hope that helps to demystify the color a little bit anyway. And I know it was a short video, but I think it'll answer questions for a lot of you guys as to why some colors that you're working with might not seem to fit the pieces that you're working on. You know, try putting a color mode layer over that and play around with the opacity, and always just use the overall color that you're going for in that scene, and it should be able to rein in some of those colors. And you could always add a mask as well and, you know, control where that goes if you wanted to. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If this was a little over your head or if it seemed to go too fast, be sure to check the links in the description. If you want the fundamentals, I've got some courses on that. And subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, all that stuff we YouTubers ask you guys to do. It really does mean a lot, so it helps us quite a bit. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.